Good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces on this brisk fall morning. Welcome to the final meeting of the fifth term of the FCC's Disability Advisory Committee. I'm Kyle Dixon, and I'm pleased to be here with my illustrious co-chair, Kim Charleston, as we add this capstone to the committee's work. We will have time at the end for live audience participation. Members of the public who are remote can email questions to livequestions@fcc.gov. That's live questions, one word, @fcc.gov. But first, we would like to welcome Commissioner Ana Gomez to give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Kyle. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you this morning and to discuss what the FCC is currently doing and what goals are going forward to best serve the disability community. First of all, thank you all for your service in this important advisory committee. I can't believe it's your last meeting. That's really something. I know how hard it is to serve on these communities and how much hard work it takes to put together the recommendations for the commission, so thank you. Your expertise, experiences, and advocacy as leaders of accessibility and communications are critical assets to the commission and to the public, and it is a pleasure to see you all. It's hype music for me. Since becoming a commissioner just over a year ago, I have learned so much about the extent to which technological innovation can benefit consumers. I believe my record shows my excitement about the potential for technological innovation to close the digital divide, to implement creative spectrum solutions, to improve public safety systems, and to foster a vibrant media ecosystem. But crucial to the success of these initiatives is ensuring their life-changing improvements are felt by everyone, of course, including the disability community. Today, we have made groundbreaking strides in improving access to technology for people with disabilities, driven by the fundamental notion that when we encourage accessibility by design, we all win. While great work has already been done to build out features that expand accessibility, such as improving video conferencing technology and providing consistent closed captioning, it is equally important that these features are actually and practically accessible to the viewers who need them the most. The FCC is working to ensure that manufacturers prioritize the inclusion of these accessibility features into product development from the beginning, encouraging accessibility by design. Specifically, in our October meeting, that was yesterday, I voted to adopt an order mandating 100% hearing aid compatibility for all wireless handset models offered for sale or for use in the United States. This is a big deal and is a crucial way that the FCC acted to make communication services accessible for all. This past summer, I also voted to adopt an order to make video conferencing services more accessible. On this front, we made the interface controls for captions, speakers, and signers adjustable, ensuring those who are deaf and hard of hearing can have a better experience using video conferencing services. We also updated our rules so that video conferencing platforms can support third-party captioning and sign language interpretation services, and to allow the provision of telecommunications relay services in video conferencing to be supported by the TRS fund. Now, while there's still work to do, I am proud to see the FCC lead by example, engaging in regular conversations like this one to brainstorm and to learn from you about how to best ensure accessibility is baked into our policies. I'm also inspired by this group and its collective work. You help us keep top of mind that in order for technology to empower everyone, it must be accessible for everyone. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gomez. We thank you for your leadership on these issues, as well as, yes, we do owe her a round of applause, and for your longstanding work for the American people. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Bob Aldridge, Acting Deputy Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau.
Yeah, I'm the acting deputy chief. You might remember Diane Burstein, who served as deputy bureau chief for several years. She retired last summer. I'm also here on behalf of Alejandro Roark, chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Something came up of an emergency nature, and he can't be with us today, but he conveys his regrets to all of you. Thank you, everyone, for making time to participate in the final meeting of the 5th term of the Disability Advisory Committee. The committee was established almost 10 years ago on December 2nd, 2014, to provide advice and recommendations to the Commission on a wide variety of disability issues. So congratulations on the DAC's upcoming 10-year anniversary. The FCC cannot do this work without the engagement of you, the members of the DAC, as well as other stakeholders and the general public. The work you do on behalf of the DAC is critical to the Commission and has helped the Commission effectively address disability access issues. We've incorporated or followed up with many of your recommendations through our rulemakings or recent actions over the years. Of course, this month, we also celebrate the anniversary of the CVAA. I hope I don't have to spell that out to any of you. Became law October 2010. The CVAA updated federal communications law to increase access to modern communications for people with disabilities and bring it up to date with 21st century technologies, including new digital, broadband, and mobile innovations. With your efforts, we can continue to improve accessible communications to keep pace with the technical evolution of modern products and services. Taking a global perspective, we welcome the September 2024 adoption of a global digital compact by the United Nations, which includes several commitments to advance the rights of people with disabilities and digital accessibility. I'd like to acknowledge the DAC co-chairs, Kim Charlson and Kyle Dixon, for their commitment and leadership. Would also like to thank Anna Yaraski and Christina Duarte, who co-chair the working group on best practices for quality telecommunications relay services for individuals with multiple disabilities. Sarah Malayer, chair of the working group on online gaming accessibility for individuals who are blind or have low vision. And Shadi Abuzara and Heather York, co-chairs of the working group on the use of artificial intelligence to caption live video programming. We look forward to hearing about the efforts of these working groups during today's meeting and getting your input on their recommendations. The feedback we received today will help inform the work we do to ensure digital accessibility for people with disabilities. Your participation is critical, and we thank you for being here, and we hope to see you here for the next term of the DAC. I would just like to take another moment to thank Commission staff who have worked hard to make this meeting possible. Josh Mendelson, the Acting Chief of the Disability Rights Office, as well as the designated federal officer. Our new Deputy Designated Federal Officer, Molly Bergdorf. Ivy Davis, who took care of countless details. DRO staff who served as working group facilitators, including Bill Wallace, Ike Ofobike, Will Schell, and Stephen Wang. Numerous DRO staff who are serving as volunteers today, staff from the Commissioner Meeting Room and Media Relations, Amy Krisap, who is our accommodations coordinator, the interpreters and captioners, and many more. A lot of work goes into planning and running each meeting, and here it takes multiple teams working together to ensure an, I assume, successful meeting. And thanks to all of you for all you do to make communication services and technologies accessible for all. Back to our co-chair.
Thank you, Bob. Again, my name is Kyle Dixon. I am the Vice President for Program Network Policy at NCTA, the Internet and Television Association, and I'd love to pass it to my co-chair, Kim Charlson.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm Kim Charlson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Perkins Braille and Talking Book Library and Supervisor of the I Can Connect programs that Perkins is associated with for National Deafblind Equipment Distribution Program. And I'm from Watertown, Massachusetts, and it's just amazing to me that this is the last meeting of the 5th cycle of the DAC. We're all saying that, but it's when I look back at the work we've done, and I think it's, thank you to all of you for your contributions to the process, because every step forward is monumental toward greater accessibility. And sometimes we think that maybe it's an inch at a time or a foot at a time, perhaps, but we are making progress, and that's what's always so rewarding to see. So thank you again to all of you for the work, and I'm looking forward to today's reports, and I will hand it off to Josh Mendelson, our federal officer for the DAC and the acting chief of the Disability Rights section, to give more updates.
Good morning and hello to everybody. My name is Josh Mendelson, and I am the Designated Federal Officer, or otherwise known as the DFO, for this Disability Advisory Committee. I am also the acting division chief of the Disability Rights Office, or the DRO. Susie Rosen-Singleton is on a temporary detail to the State Department and is working on international disability rights issues. What a tremendous opportunity for her. She'll be there until the month of January, so I am serving in her stead. We have a new Deputy Designated Federal Officer as well, who is Molly Bergdorf. She is a new attorney advisor in our office. Because of my new temporary position, Molly has taken on quite a bit of work in the management of the practical details of all the DAC functions. Molly has really hit the ground running in all the work that she's been doing, working with all of you, and I want to extend a really big thanks to Molly for doing this work. And thank you to Ivy as well for all of your assistance in the process. Ivy is certainly getting her miles in today and all the running around she's doing. So Molly works remotely full-time, so she is watching, but hopefully her ears are burning right now. So I just want to take a few minutes to review some of the housekeeping rules. And we would ask you to please follow those rules to ensure a smooth meeting for today. The restrooms, of course, very important. Restrooms are located right outside of these doors, the immediate doors you may have behind you, on the right or left-hand sides of the building. The fire exits in case of emergency, I mean, it's a full moon outside, so you never know what might happen. In case of evacuation, please do so through the main doors, through the security area, and you will evacuate to the front of the building. If those doors are not available, then we'd ask you to evacuate through the side doors, which are to my right-hand side, on the right side of the building, or this room rather. We will have FCC staff who will be assisting at all times during the meeting. Meals and beverages will also be provided. Please know that we will have breakfast and lunch for those who are participating in the meeting and for any support staff today. So please do be mindful and respectful of that. I would also like to thank Apple for your sponsorship and covering the cost of the meals for this meeting. Really, thank you. During the meeting, please recognize that one person will have the floor at a time. If you wish to speak, we ask that you please raise your tent card that will have your name on it, turn it so that it is standing vertically, and then Kyle or Kim will recognize you. Once they recognize you and ask you to take a turn, then you can go ahead and speak. Please turn on your microphone if you are using a microphone. There is a raised button on the microphone. There are actually two buttons. So the button you'll press is on the right-hand side, and there is a raised bump on it. So when you feel that bump, you can press that, make your comment, and then we ask once you've finished your comment to press that button again to turn it off, and then lower your tent card so that it's horizontal. This meeting is also open to the public. There is public participation on either side of the room. This meeting is also being live streamed. Public participation is welcome. We will have an open mic, or a microphone available at the end of this meeting for public participation for anyone who would like to ask a question or make a comment. Otherwise, you can also email your question to livequestions, that's LIVEQUESTIONS @fcc.gov. We will receive and screen those questions and respond to it accordingly. Are there any questions before I turn it back over to the co-chairs? Okay, seeing none, turn it to you.
Next on our agenda is our roll call, so we can find out who's with us today in person. So I'm going to, again, I'm Kim Charlson, co-chair, and I'm going to go to my left and recognize, and we'll move around. Please tell us your name, your affiliation, organization, and possibly where you're from, just so we can get an idea who's traveled here today from a distance or quick, close by. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Annie Uraski. This is my name sign. I represent the National Association of State Administrators for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which is NASADHH. I'm from the beautiful state of Michigan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Duarte, and I am here representing InnoCaption. I am from Virginia, but currently live in California, so I got to come back home for this meeting.
Hi, Sarah Miller, representing the American Foundation for the Blind, and I am local here in Washington, D.C.
Hi, good morning. Ian Dillner, alternate representative for Verizon, and I live in the DC area.
Good morning. I'm Heather York from VITAC Captioning and Audio Description, and I came here from Colorado.
Hi, my name is Shadia Buzara. I represent Amazon, and I am from Vienna, but not the Virginia Vienna, the Austria Vienna.
Hi, good morning. I'm Carl Richardson. I'm representing the City of Boston Mayor's Office on the Commission on Disability, and obviously I'm from Boston.
Good morning. My name is Sequoia Tasker, alternate for the Katie Schmidt. I'm with the ARC of US, and we are here in Washington, D.C. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. Michael Strecker with Clear Captions, and I hail from the Tampa, Florida area.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Everett Bacon. I am representing the National Federation of the Blind. Our headquarters are in Baltimore, Maryland, but I actually live in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Good morning. Darlene Parker with the National Captioning Institute, located in Chantilly, Virginia, just about 45 minutes west of here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Claire Stanley, representing the American Council of the Blind. We're local. Our national office is in Alexandria, Virginia.
Morning, Josh Pila, representing the National Association of Broadcasters, and I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia.
Good morning. I'm Patty Chu, and I work on the NBC Universal side of the house, but today I'm representing the whole company, Comcast, NBC Universal, and our office is right down the street. So.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Morris. I'm with the University of Pittsburgh's Wireless Rehabilitation Research and Engineering Center from Pittsburgh.
Good morning, everyone. Neil Snyder, representing the Hearing Loss Association of America. Came from Alexandria, Virginia, but I grew up in Philadelphia, so fly, Eagles, fly.
Hi, good morning. This is Scott Davert, representing the Helen Keller National Center, hailing from the great state of Michigan.
Good morning. I am Beth Slough, representing Hamilton Relay, and I am here from Nebraska.
Thank you, everyone. We need to interrupt our roll call to welcome Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, who is here to give us some remarks. Chairwoman Rosenworcel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me interrupt you. And good morning. It is always great to be with this advisory committee. Now, for this gathering of the DAC, I think there's a lot to commemorate. For starters, it's a Friday, and some weeks it feels to me like Friday is worth celebrating. This is one of them. We're also gathering during Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I can think of no better way to mark the occasion than this meeting with this committee that has done so much to address communications barriers and ensure that people with disabilities can participate in today's workforce. Now, this is also the last gathering of this iteration of the DAC. So rather than a convocation where I'd use my remarks to set goals and rally forces for all kinds of new missions, today is more of a commencement speech where you're gathering and we can talk about the work that we've been able to do together. So on that note, I want to thank you all for volunteering your time to be a part of this important endeavor. Special thank you to co-chairs Kim Charlson and Kyle Dixon for their leadership. And thank you to all of the working group leaders. Now, in many ways, this meeting is perfectly timed because yesterday, the Commission took a really big action that offers what I think is valuable perspective on the work of this committee. Less than 24 hours ago, I was sitting right where that television set is. And in this room, the Commission voted to adopt a law that makes sure that 100% of mobile handsets are fully compatible with hearing aids. That means in the not too distant future, hearing aid users will be able to consider any handset model for purchase rather than just a limited number of phones. This is a big deal. It's a big deal because, as you know, there are 48 million people in this country with some form of hearing loss. It's a big deal because this isn't just functional equivalency. 100% is equivalency. And so before this meeting, I decided to go back and look at my own records on this subject. And I found my first statement on this issue was from 2015. I was a commissioner, and the commission voted to seek comment on a proposal that would put us on the path to making 100% of mobile handsets hearing aid compatible. It wasn't a given that it was going to happen. But since that time, we've made steady and significant progress to the point where a majority of handsets on the market are already compatible with hearing aids. And yesterday, we finish the job on the regulatory side, it's going to be 100%. That's historic. Now, looking at the history of the Commission's work on hearing aid compatibility, I came across something else that I think was especially noteworthy for this group. The creation of the Disability Advisory Committee was announced just a few months before I wrote that 2015 statement. And looking at the DAC's first charter, there's a section on the committee's scope of activities. At the top of that list was issues about hearing aid compatibility. So that tells us a few things. One, the work of this committee drives Commission action. The DAC has a record of contributing to meaningful changes that quite literally affect the lives of millions. And two, whoa, those changes can take a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and a lot of people are involved when we do make them happen. And that means a lot of issues can't be resolved within the 2-year period of any DAC, this one included. They require a special level of patience and a special kind of perseverance. That is why I am so grateful for you being here and for your commitment. It's also why I am pleased to report that this committee has already been renewed for a 6th term beginning December 13th, 2024. And I'd urge you to re-up your commitment to this work, but the application period for membership closed almost 3 weeks ago, and it's apparent to me that a whole lot of you did not need my urging to remain committed to this cause, and I want to thank you for that. The bottom line is whether you serve 1 term or more terms on the DAC, all of you have made meaningful sacrifices for this group, which is making a meaningful impact. So I just wanted to interrupt you briefly, thank you for your work on this committee, and give you some concrete evidence from just yesterday that you help us make historic changes. And I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for your commitment to keep moving forward to build a digital future that works for everyone. Thank you so much.
Work. Thank you. So it's back to our roll call. Thank you so much for those remarks, Chairwoman. We appreciate it. All right. I think we left off in Nebraska, maybe? You finished, correct? So next.
Hello, I'm Wendy Adams. I'm representing Sorensen and from Chicago. Hello, my name is Zainab El-Kebsi. This is my sign name. I am now with Deaf Equality, but for the purposes of today's vote, I am representing the National Association of the Deaf at their behalf. I am a proud DC native. Hello, I'm Greg Kleibach, representing ZP Better Together. From the state of Maryland, I also have an alternative representing ZP, Mark Stern, who has joined us from New Jersey, so we are represented doubly today. Thank you. Hello, I'm Brianne Berger from U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Rehabilitation Services. I live here in D.C. Hello, I'm Mark Hill, representing CPADO, Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Organization. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anne Marie Killian, representing TDI for Access, and I'm proud to say I'm from the state of Georgia.
Hi, I'm Megan Stahl. I'm here representing Apple. I live in Arlington, Virginia, but I agree with Neil, fly Eagles fly.
Kathy,
Want to do your introduction?
What? Do I need a microphone?
Yep, it's right here.
No. Hi, I'm Kathy Miller, serving as alternate for Renee Pellerin.
also representing the American Association of the Deafblind. I am here from Louisiana, and I am absolutely thrilled to be among these people.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you all. I'm Thomas Horgis, representing Convo Communications, and I am here as the alternate to Amanda, and I am from Maryland.
Buenos días. My name is Maria Victoria Diaz. I'm from the CAPTA, representing the needs of the Latinx community with disabilities, and I'm coming from Florida.
Hi, good morning. My name is Rachel Nemeth, and I'm with the Consumer Technology Association based here in the Washington, D.C. area.
Hi, I'm Karen Peltz-Strauss. I'm representing Communications Service for the Deaf. I've lived in D.C. for the past 4 decades, but I'm a born and bred New Yorker from Brooklyn, and at the risk of some groans, I must say, go Mets.
Hi everyone, Dennis Selznick from T-Mobile, and I'm visiting here from the great state of Kansas.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Leggin, and I'm here representing CTIA from the wireless industry. I'm joined by my colleague Abney Bell as my alternate, and we are local to the DC area.
All right. I'm Michael Scott with the Disability Rights Office, and I live in Maryland.
I think I already introduced myself. I'm originally from Chicago, but lived in D.C. for longer than I care to remember.
And once again, I am Josh Mendelson. I am from California, Alaska, Massachusetts, and now Maryland.
Kyle Dixon again. I'm a proud nutmegger, so I'm from Hartford, Connecticut originally, but I live in D.C. now.
Are we on? Yes, that's better. Thank you. All right, I just wanted to acknowledge a few regrets that we're not able to be here today. The NBDA, Black Deaf Advocates, I think are the initials, Health and Human Services, ACL office, and FEMA are not able to be here with us today. So next on our agenda, we'll hear updates from the Disability Rights Office, and we turn to Michael Scott, the Deputy Chief for Disability Rights Office, to give us an update.
Good morning again, everyone. I am Michael Scott, Deputy Chief in the Disability Rights Office. Pitching a little bit today, I usually only do half the update on TRS issues, but with Susie on her detail, I'm going to fill in the whole thing, but we'll also try to keep it brief. So you've heard about the hack item that was adopted yesterday, so I will move past that one and also mention another item that was adopted at the commission meeting yesterday, 988. It was a third report and order to require geo-routing of mobile calls to 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Geo-routing uses the location of a mobile device to direct a call to the nearest crisis center rather than the area code of the device's telephone number, which may not match the physical location of the caller. The FCC, we recently released and sent the CVAA biennial report to Congress, which examines the accessibility of telecommunications and advanced communication services and equipment over the past 2 years. You also heard a little bit this morning that back in September, we adopted a second report and order and further notice of proposed rulemaking to ensure the accessibility of interoperable video conferencing services for people with disabilities. The second report and order established specific performance objectives on accurate and synchronous captions, enable connections to third-party captioning and sign language interpreting services, and allow users to independently activate and adjust the display of captions, speakers, and signers, and other features for which user controls is necessary for accessibility. The FCC also affirmed that the Interstate TRS Fund supports the provision of video relay service and other telecommunication relay services when integrated with video conferencing, and amended the TRS rules to facilitate the provision of TRS with video conferencing. Then, going back to July, the FCC adopted a report and order on reconsideration, clarification, and waiver, and further notice of proposed rulemaking, implementing the requirements of the Martha Wright Reed Just and Reasonable Communication Act of 2022, and taking additional actions to further the accessibility and affordability of incarcerated persons' communication services. This includes adding audio and video services provided in carceral facilities to the definition of advanced communication services, authorizing enterprise registration for IPCTS and IP relay to ease the burden of making those services available, requiring charges, rates, and practices to be provided in accessible formats, and allowing communication service providers to provide access to TTY-based TRS via real-time text. Also, sticking with July for a few more items, the FCC also adopted a report and order taking steps to advance the nationwide transition to next generation 911. NG 911, as it's called, uses Internet Protocol IP-based format and routing, and will support the transmission of text, photos, video, and data. The FCC adopted the first nationwide NG 911 transition rules that define the responsibilities and set deadlines for wireline, wireless, covered text providers, interconnected VoIP providers, and internet-based telecommunication relay service providers to implement NG 911 capabilities on their networks and deliver 911 calls to NG 911 systems. The FCC also adopted a third report and order requiring manufacturers of covered apparatus and multi-channel video programming distributors, MVPDs as we call them, to make closed captioning display settings readily accessible to individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. The order gives manufacturers and MVPDs the flexibility to decide how they will meet the readily accessible standard. The order also clarifies that the FCC will evaluate accessibility of captioning displays, setting by evaluating the following factors: proximity, discoverability, previewability, and consistency and persistence. And finally, one more item, the FCC released a further notice of proposed rulemaking, proposing that captioning registration and certification requirements will not apply to video programmers if they provide programs only to public, educational, and governmental access, known as PEG channels, that are exempt from captioning requirements, and if another entity, such as the channel administrator, makes the necessary certification that the channels are exempt. Additionally, for programming on non-broadcast network distributed by cable operators or other multi-channel video programming distributors, the FCC proposes that individual video programmers need not register and certify if their network certifies that all of its programming is either exempt from or in compliance with the captioning rules. So thank you. I turn it back over to the chairs.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear that accounting of all of the hard work that's been done, and again, the progress being made. I'd like to acknowledge and introduce Annie Urosky and Christina Duarte, that we're going to go into the working group reports portion of our meeting. And they are the co-chairs of the working group on best practices for quality TRS for individuals with multiple disabilities. So I'm turn it over to Christina, who will present the report and discussion. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. I want to start out by thanking everybody for their efforts in the working group, the drafting group, and especially all of the wonderful presenters that we had that gave us just a wealth of information on accessing TRS for individuals with multiple disabilities. I'm going to go ahead and give a high-level overview of our recommendation, which all of you have received. We've received comments and both non-substantive and a substantive edit that we will address a substantive edit here for discussion and incorporate all non-substantive changes. I don't know why I cannot say that word today, substantive changes after the meeting. But what our recommendation does is we talk about how the commission should be acutely aware of how functional equivalence does not mean the same thing to two people. It is highly unique, and what one person needs for accessibility in telecommunications is not necessarily what another person needs for that accessibility. So the main themes of our recommendation are that there should be flexibility in the features and customization options provided to consumers. And we talked a lot about how important it is that app-based solutions are able to work with the native accessibility features on operating systems. Another theme that we saw reoccurring from our presentations and have incorporated in our recommendation is the need for more education and outreach about the services that are available to raise awareness in these communities for people with multiple disabilities about their eligibility for telecommunications relay services. We discussed and implemented in the recommendation the importance of the integration of innovative technologies. So technology is moving at a very fast pace for the entire world, and sometimes in telecommunications relay services, it can move slower where we don't have technology neutral standards. And so in this recommendation, we do urge the commission to ensure that regulations moving forward are technology neutral because it is critical for functional equivalence. Telecommunication relay services should evolve at the same pace as other technologies. We discuss the importance of technology and security solutions taking into account the diverse accessibility needs of the community. And while technology security is certainly important, as all of us know, we encourage development of solutions that have alternatives that are accessible, so it doesn't end up being a barrier to accessibility. And we also discuss challenges with state programs and phasing out captioned telephone service and the importance of ensuring, especially in rural communities and communities that don't have access to broadband, the availability of analog services. With that being said, I would like to turn to the substantive change that we received. And I would like to thank Karen Peltz-Strauss for all of her feedback on this. I will go ahead and hand it over to her to discuss the change that she recommends on page 5 in paragraph 2 of the recommendation.
Thank you, Christina. This is a small suggestion. First of all, I want to mention that there was a brief period of time that I was consulting for Voice It, and I made that known. I'm no longer consulting. It was a very brief period. But Voice It did, and when they actually presented, I was not representing them at the time either. It's very short. They did present to the group on a voice or a speech recognition technology that is capable of accurately describing non-standard speech. They are not the only ones. They're not the only company that's been investigating this. In fact, some very large well-known companies have been coordinating to try to ensure that speech recognition technologies are capable of understanding people with speech disabilities, especially given how much our technology is becoming reliant on communication by speech, including AI technologies. But I had not seen any mention of this with respect to TRS or speech services in the document. And maybe it's because they presented so early on that people forgot about them. So what I suggested is including a sentence that basically mentions this, that there is some promise that there's technology that can improve the ability of people with speech disabilities to get their messages across on relay services that might even be an improvement over the current method of using individuals. And the language that I proposed be included is the following: enabling the use of evolving speech recognition technologies that are capable of accurately transcribing non-standard speech may be one option to enhance telecommunications access for STS relay users. Any questions? I hand it back over to you. Thank you, Christina, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was, as far as Annie and I are concerned, that was a wonderful addition, and we saw so many presentations, and our intention was to include something like this in the final product, so we are very happy that you caught that to add it. And if nobody has any further discussion or questions on this recommendation, I will pass it back to Kim.
Thank you.
Actually, we do have one question.
Good.
Two people.
Great.
First, Zainab.
This is Zainab. Karen, I think that's a great addition, and I really do appreciate that you did that. Can I ask you to clarify which paragraph that's in so that we can note where the edit is?
Sure. Well, in the original draft that we reviewed, it was on page 5, the second paragraph that begins, current mainstream speech recognition technologies do not benefit all user groups with multiple disabilities. It's the last sentence it would be the last sentence added.
Were there other questions? Oh, sorry. Yes, Mark Hill.
I'd like to make a comment on this. I know that Karen's been working on this for some 20 years, which is hard to imagine.
40.
Started, I think, working with CSD at the time. And then as VRS was implemented and distributed, we saw issues arising with interpretations and miscommunications, misunderstandings, and the like. My mother emailed me and let me know the following sentence.
My mother, in an email, clarified that something that had been said to me via a relay service had not been accurate, and she clarified her accurate statement in an email. So the inclusion of VRS's evolution and revolution in the recommendations to the Commission at that point in the drafting process to now. And CPADO organization in March 2012 made a similar recommendation alongside Greg Leibach, who at the time was working with the Federal Communications Commission. And was the chair for the Disability Advisory Committee. At the time, we met very, very regularly. And at the time, what was tested was a pilot. The outcome was not quite what we had hoped. The statement that was made at that time was that they were very grateful for our work and participation and the effort put forth thus far. And I agree. I would like to share my gratitude as well and recognize the accomplishments the disability advisory community has effected for the disability communities.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
I believe we aren't hearing any objections to the additions, so back to you.
All right. I would like to proceed, if there's no objection, to a vote on the formal recommendation. And Christina, I'm interpreting that the recommendation from the working group is to accept your report with the amendment proposed by Karen. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right, so we need to take an official vote, and each organization needs to vote. So when we're going to go around the room, as we did with the roll call, and we'll start to my left. Indicate your name, your organization, and your yay or nay vote on the report adoption.
This is Annie signing. I'm representing NASADHH. I.
Can we get the camera?
Do that again. All right, this is Annie signing, representing NASADHH. I vote aye.
Sorry, I get confused sometimes with I. So Christina Duarte, representing Anno Caption, voting yes.
The American Foundation for the Blind votes yes.
Verizon votes to approve.
VITAC votes yes.
Amazon votes yes.
City of Boston votes yes.
The Arc of the United States votes yes.
Clear Captions votes yes.
National Federation of the Blind votes yes.
National Captioning Institute votes yes.
The American Council of the Blind votes yes.
NAB votes yes.
Comcast NBC Universal votes yes.
University of Pittsburgh Wireless RARC votes yes.
Hearing Loss Association of America votes yes.
Helen Keller National Center votes yes.
Hamilton Relay votes yes.
Nina votes yes.
Sorensen votes yes. National Association of the Deaf votes yes. ZP Better Together votes yes. US Department of Education abstains. CPDO votes yes. Congratulations. TDI votes yes.
Apple votes yes, and thanks to the working group.
American Association of the Deafblind votes yes.
Convo Communications votes yes.
DeCapta votes yes.
Consumer Technology Association votes yes.
Communication Service for the Deaf votes yes, and thanks to the working group.
T-Mobile votes yes.
CTIA votes yes.
AT&T votes yes.
NCTA votes yes.
Perkins votes yes. Thank you to, so the report has been adopted and will move forward for the staff for implementation. So thank you to the working group for your hard work on this report. I think that deserves a round of applause. Josh? Okay, break, yes, okay. All right, so we're gonna take a brief break, approximately, oh, not yet? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we also had a greeting from Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, and my apologies, I managed to skip that in our script. So we will now see the welcome video from Commissioner Starks, and we thank him.
I missed it.
It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We will play that video right after our break. We're going to take a break for about
After
10
break.
minutes.
I said earlier today, flexibility with a capital F is our name today, you know, so flexibility. So, yes, so we'll take a short break. Thank you.
Please come back at 10:10. Everyone? Good morning, everyone. We'd like to get restarted. If you could all take your seats, please. Everyone, if you could please take your seats. Everyone, we're going to get started so we can stay on track. And we're actually going to start with the video from Commissioner Starks that we didn't have a chance to show before. So if you could direct your attention to the monitors as you go back to your seats. Thank you.
Hello all, thank you for allowing me to be with you, albeit virtually. Today is the last meeting of your current term, and so I'd like to extend a special thanks to each and every one of you for your hard work over the last couple of years, and for some of you, of course, more than 2 years. Your efforts on the DAC have led directly to important commission actions, and so I'd like to talk in particular about 3 of them here today. First, last month we adopted an order requiring interoperable video conferencing services IVCS to comply with new accessibility requirements. The category IVCS includes all of the video conferencing platforms that we're all so familiar with now. That's Zoom, Teams, WebEx, Google Meet. And we asked the DAC to study this issue, and in 2022, you came back to us with a report. And so thanks to your efforts, we now require IVCS providers to interconnect with third-party captioning and sign language interpretation services, including TRS. You won't need to use a second screen or dial in using a traditional telephone number. I know one TRS provider is already partnering with an IVCS provider, and I look forward to seeing more and more examples of this. Our September order also imposes additional requirements on IVCS providers. For example, going forward, they'll have to give users greater control over the display of captions, speakers, signers, and other accessibility features. This means that a deaf user will be able to pin their interpreter, and a low vision user will have greater access and control over screen reader functionality. And so we recognize that our work to ensure full and equal access to IVCS is not done, but we also impose a number of additional questions to the public, seeking comment on what further steps we can and should take to ensure that these vital communication tools are accessible to all. Here's another example. In August, we adopted a new rate card for IPCTS. And so for the first time, we'll allocate different rates to providers depending on whether they use automated speech recognition, ASR, to caption the call, or traditional captioning assistance, CAs. We hope to achieve a few different things here. And while ASR is developing fast and is an exciting technology, I've seen the data submitted by a number of organizations that and have spoken to leaders of these companies. ASR does make additional errors when transcribing the speech of certain groups of people that give me concern, including those with accents or different speech patterns. For users who rely on this service for their calls, whether it's speaking to a doctor's office or catching up with their grandchildren, being just okay is not good enough. And so our ASR rate is intended to ensure that IPCTS providers can continue to invest in improving their algorithms. One more example that I want to focus on here today. In July, we adopted new rules specifying how closed captioning and other features on devices must be readily accessible. Again, many of the organizations represented here today told us how difficult it was to find the closed captioning display features on a device. And frankly, that's a universal issue for anyone who's watched video programming, and they know the experience of pressing multiple buttons on a remote and going through multiple settings on a smartphone or a tablet in order to get the menu you want. And so I'm proud of the rules we have adopted, which require device manufacturers and cable and satellite TV providers to ensure that closed captioning display settings are readily accessible. This applies to a wide range of devices, not just televisions and set-top boxes, but to any device manufactured or used in the United States designed to receive or play video programming transmitted simultaneously with sound. This will aid and potentially increase the substantial audience served by closed captioning. So thank you for all your hard work, for keeping us busy, and making sure we're doing all that we can to ensure that all Americans have access to modern communications. And thank you for all of you as you finish up your service, and to the many of you that will continue. Take care and be well.
Wonderful. Always good to know the priority that our top leadership at the agency places on these issues and on this committee. With that, I'd like to move on with our working group reports. First, I'd like to introduce Sarah Malaire, Chair of the Working Group on Online Gaming Accessibility for Individuals who are blind or have low vision. I invite you to provide your report, and we will take it from there.
Thank you, Kyle. I'll wait for the camera. Great. So I'm Sarah Miller with the American Foundation for the Blind, and I had the privilege of chairing our working group on communications and gaming for people who are blind, have low vision, or deafblind. I first want to thank the working group and thank our facilitators. It was a really good group. We got a lot of perspectives, and I'm excited for the report that we have today. This was certainly a fun working group. We don't always get to work on video games, but it is, you know, the video games are popular for a reason, and so it's fun to make sure that they're available to all. The task that we were set was to examine blind-related accessibility issues with communication on various gaming platforms, AR and VR, console, computer, handheld, smartphone, and to outline the value of accessible communication during gameplay to blind gamers and identify blind-related solutions employed by various gaming sectors and proposals to ensure development incorporates accessible communication out of the box for blind gamers. It was important to us in this working group to represent the full spectrum of blindness, including people who have low vision, are blind, and are deafblind. So in the report, we described the impact and importance of video games for blind, low vision, and deafblind gamers. We noted that video games appeal to all ages, with 67% of adults and 76% of children playing video games. Esports draws in over $1 billion in each year. And video gaming is an important social activity, which has potential increased importance given that people who are blind tend to be at increased risk of social isolation. So in our report, we outlined the FCC's rulemakings and series of waivers from 2012 to 17 that exempted video games from the FCC's ACS rules, and noted that today video games are covered by the Advanced Communication Services rules. We also provided an overview of communication and platform types. We noted that voice and text chat are the most common kinds of communication provided in video games, and that the types of platforms and examples of accessibility considerations unique to those platforms can vary quite a bit, and include the use of either built-in or external assistive technology, software and hardware, depending on whether you're playing mobile games, computer games, console games, which includes handheld consoles, and virtual reality games. We also outlined typical roles of impact in accessible gaming, and this was intended to note that it is not just one party that is responsible for ensuring that video games are accessible, but that all of the players have responsibility for creating systems that are fully accessible, and for making sure that the additional software and hardware that they are developing works well with the accessibility ecosystem. So we noted the role of game designers and developers, game engines or framework developers, operating system accessibility API engineers, assistive technology developers, hardware engineers, project managers and leadership, and testers and accessibility consultants. We then described some of the considerations for blind, low vision, and deafblind gamers, including the barriers that players face, such as screen reader compatibility, text chat color contrast, and zooming capabilities, as well as the impact of audio quality and the use of audio settings to customize audio for individual users. We noted that players use different types of assistive technology in gameplay, including screen readers, keyboards, braille displays, and so the game should be compatible with a variety of types of hardware and software. And then we provided examples of solutions that have been implemented by different games, from the appropriate use of color to innovations in spatial sound. So given the importance of video gaming and in-game communications, we are recommending the following actions: that the FCC continue to monitor the accessibility of communications in video games, that the FCC should take steps to make game platform developers, designers, and engineers aware of their responsibility to ensure two-way communications are accessible to blind gamers, and that the FCC should consider the breadth of hardware and software barriers that blind gamers may face in accessing in-game communications. And to that end, we documented some of the available accessibility guidelines that provide examples of accessibility barriers and how to solve them. We have received only minor grammatical and word choice edits, and we thank Karen Peltz-Strauss for those. And we will incorporate those after this meeting. So I turn it over to our chairs.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions or comments on the report? I am not seeing any tent cards raised, so I guess that means we can proceed with a vote. We will, as Kim just directed last time, we will start to my left and go around. Each organization is asked to recognize themselves or identify themselves and say whether you approve or disapprove of the recommendation and report.
Thank you. All right. Perkins, Kim Charleston Perkins votes yes on the report and thanks the committee.
Andy Uraski signing here, representing National Association of State Agencies Serving Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I vote to approve the report and thank the members of the committee for your work on it.
Anno Caption votes aye.
The American Foundation for the Blind votes yes.
Verizon votes to approve. Thank you.
VITAC votes aye.
Amazon votes yes.
City of Boston votes yes.
The ARC of the United States votes yes.
Clear Captions votes yes.
National Federation of the Blind votes yes.
The National Captioning Institute votes yes.
ACV votes yes, and thank you for your leadership, Sarah.
NAB votes yes.
Comcast NBCU votes yes.
Wireless RERC of Pittsburgh votes yes.
Hearing Loss Association of America votes yes.
Helen Keller National Center votes yes.
Hamilton Relay votes yes.
Nina votes yes.
Sorensen votes yes. National Association of the Deaf votes yes, and thanks the working group. ZP votes yes. U.S. Department of Education abstains. Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Organization votes yes. And would like to thank the working group for this new step taken to afford all deaf and players with disabilities greater access. TDI for Access votes yes, and thanks Sarah for your leadership and the working group for your efforts in achieving this. Thank you.
Apple votes yes.
American Association of the Deafblind votes yes.
Convo Communications votes yes.
DeCapta votes yes.
Consumer Technology Association votes yes.
CSG votes yes, and thanks for your great work and for incorporating my edits.
T-Mobile votes yes.
CTIA votes yes.
AT&T votes yes.
And NCTA votes yes. Congratulations, the report is adopted, and we thank Sarah, the working group, and all of you for your hard work and careful consideration of the recommendation. We will now move on to the next working group. We do indeed deserve applause. Again, thank you so much for the hard work. I know it's hard landing these planes. So our next working group, I would like to introduce Shadi Abuzara and Heather York, who are co-chairs of the working group on the use of artificial intelligence to caption live video programming. Shadi and Heather?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Shadi Abuzara from Amazon, and together with my the co-chair, Heather York from Vitek, we're presenting this report on best practices on the use of artificial intelligence, AI, to caption live video programming. So we were tasked to develop and recommend best practices on the use of automatic speech recognition, also called ASR, and other artificial intelligence-based technologies to apply, as they apply to covered live or near live video programming. So really, the captioning rules of the Commission are technology neutral, but we were tasked with looking how that sometimes they could be interpreted to apply specifically to human captioners, and to develop best practices to see if we can make this, in my terms, more agnostic and broaden this up a little bit. So the report, we explored the current state of automatic speech recognition, ASR. We looked at the real-time captioning workflows and how ASR may fit into this workflows. We looked, for example, on so-called cloud-based and on-premises automatic speech recognition in these workflows. And from there, we went into how ASR for captioning television, for television differs from similar technologies, also captioning and speech recognition, but in other contexts, not specifically on television. And from there, we developed pros and cons based on the 4 principles: accuracy, synchronicity, program completeness, and placement. And for each of these, we looked at the pros and cons and had lots of discussions about these, as also how things fit in. And finally, the report has 7 recommendations, 7 edits to the rules, where either we are recommending removing some items or adding software where applicable to broaden the aspect to allow also automated captioning in this context. We received 2 editorial comments that will be incorporated after this meeting if they are approved. So far, the working group, there have been no objections, only support for these edits. And again, with thanks to Karen Pelstrauss for these comments.
Thank you, Shadi. Karen, would you like to actually speak to the edits, or do you feel like they're self-explanatory?
I think they were all non-substantive, if I recall correctly. So again, and thank you for incorporating them. I realize that took some extra time. It's the editor and me that just couldn't get suppressed enough. So, but it was a great report. Thank you.
Thank you. It does take a village. I think with that, we are prepared to vote on the report as amended by Karen's edits. And we'll start again to my left and go around for the roll call.
Perkins votes yes on the report.
This is Annie representing the NASADHH. I vote yes.
Anno Caption votes yes.
The American Foundation for the Blind votes yes.
Verizon votes yes.
Vitek votes yes, and thanks everybody who helped this process along.
Amazon votes aye.
City of Boston votes yes.
The ARC of the United States votes yes.
Clear Captions votes yes.
National Federation of the Blind votes yes.
National Captioning Institute votes yes.
American Council of the Blind votes yes.
NAB votes yes, and thanks everyone in the working group.
Comcast NBCU votes yes.
Wireless RERC votes yes.
Hearing Loss Association of America votes yes.
Helen Keller National Center votes yes.
Hamilton Relay votes yes.
Nina votes yes.
Sorensen votes yes. Can we have the camera, please? Thank you. National Association of the Deaf votes yes. And thanks to Heather and Shidi for your work and leadership on the committee. ZP votes yes. I second your remarks, Zainab. Department of Education abstains. CPADO votes yes. TDI votes yes, and repeat the remarks earlier. Thank you for a wonderful job, and want to recognise Shidi and Heather for their marvellous work in this committee. Thank you.
Apple votes yes.
The American Association of the Deafblind votes yes.
Convo Communications votes yes. The GAFTA votes yes.
Consumer Technology Association votes yes.
CSD votes yes.
T-Mobile votes yes.
CTIA votes yes.
AT&T votes yes.
And NCTA votes yes. We are 3 for 3, folks.
Yes.
With all working group reports adopted. Want to thank again Shadi and Heather. Yes. Shadi and Heather in the working group for its hard work, as well as the full DAC for your careful consideration and input. Now I'd like to turn it back to Josh for a dialogue on potential future working group topics.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you also to the working group chairs for your amazing working group guidance. I know that it's not an easy job, and it does take a lot of work, behind the scenes work, especially with the drafting subcommittees for each working group. They spend hours and hours, day and night, drafting. You know, like back when you were in college, when you're drafting your essays the night before the deadline, and the FCC is like, where's the report? Where's the report? Let's get to it. So I really do appreciate the working groups, the drafting group members, and all of their hard work, the hours and hours that go into it, the sweats, the curses, all of that goes into these reports. Thank you. And to recognize that this is the final meeting, we did lay out certificates of appreciation at your spots. For each person, each organization. We also have certificates of appreciation for alternates as well. If you are here in the audience, please do stop by and see one of the FCC staff to get your certificate. If the alternate or primary member is not here, that's all right. We'll contact you after the meeting to confirm your mailing addresses, and then we will send out the certificates directly to you all. We did want to have a token of our appreciation and recognition for your time, your hard work, and working with the DAC over the last 2 years. Your work, your reports will go into future rulemakings or actions. actions that we're planning to take in the near future. So please do know that your work is valuable. And now, with the conclusion of those 3 working groups, we'd like to solicit ideas. Ideas from the group for potential topics for the next term of the DAC. Please know that the FCC, or specifically the disability-related efforts, do need to relate to 3 general areas. First, the accessibility of video programming, meaning captions, audio descriptions, or the settings controls. It can be broadcast TV based. It can be videos on the internet if they were already shown on television with captions. So that's one area. The second area is modern communications, telecommunications. That's really quite broad and includes relay services. It includes video conferencing platforms. It includes communication services for people or for incarcerated persons. It really is quite broad. Across the sector of telecommunication services for individuals with disabilities. The third area is emergency communications, or the accessibility of emergency communications, meaning 911, 988, text to 911 and text to 988. Emergency alerts that you get on your phone when your phone will buzz, message, and warn you. Or emergency alerts and communications on television. So those are 3 areas that we have our primary disability focus on in regards to the FCC. So at this point, we would love to hear and get an idea from you all about any potential DAC working group topics that are within those 3 areas that I just explained. So now I will open the floor, and I do see already 1 or 2 tent cards that have already gone up. So I'll turn it over to you, Kyle.
Sure. Greg Leibach.
Thanks, Kyle and Josh, for starting us off on this important conversation. I'd like to take a pulse from the members here. We are looking to the complaints that consumers file or share in reports to the FCC or companies, because I think that that would be a great indicator of what trends we're currently seeing out there, and that might give us more visibility into emerging issues that could be addressed by DAC working groups in the future in terms of what the consumers in the communities at large are experiencing. So if there are general complaints or topics, I'm not sure if complaints is the right word, but I do remember that in my time working with the DRO, we would often share those, the general tenor of complaints. And again, I think that would be terrific if you could share that with us as the DAC members again, so that we can get some aggregation perhaps in the kinds of complaints that are coming up and any new trends that are observable, again, so that that might be something that we can use to guide what we address in the future.
This is Josh Mendelson again. Thank you, Greg. For the time being, I can tell you that in the aggregate, the most complaints that we receive are in regards to closed captions. It used to be broadcast, but now it's becoming more heavily IP streamed videos, where we're getting the most or the highest percentage of complaints now. IP is becoming number 1, followed by broadcast TV, just slightly beneath IP. The second area where we get the most complaints is TRS services. They tend to be one-offs in that situation, but that is the second area where we receive the most complaints. We also receive smaller numbers of complaints about the National Deafblind Equipment Distribution Program, and others are very small numbers. So those are the 2 or 3 main areas. First being TV captions, streamed captions, and TRS relay services. Back to Greg.
Thank you for that summary, Josh. I wonder if it's possible to show the numbers in any kind of grid so that we can get a sense, not too specifically, but a sense of what's reflected in terms of what's provided, what's coming from which companies, and not identifying them, but showing what the issues are that they're experiencing. So TRS obviously is a very broad topic. If it could be narrowed down into particular areas that might be in scope for us to address. It's just a suggestion, and not to do it right this moment, but perhaps in time for the next DAC meeting, we could see some numbers that give us more visibility.
Okay. Given how many people we have with comments, I'm going to just exercise my prerogative to go the way of the roll call, and I'll start with my left with Christina.
Thank you so much, Josh, and thank you for the opportunity to provide some ideas for future consideration by DAC. A couple issues have come up pretty consistently among community discussions and state discussions that I've been privy to over the past year, and one of those is the phasing out of analog services in state telecommunication relay services programs. I think it could be very beneficial for a DAC committee working group to look into the gap in accessible telecommunication services that will leave for a lot of consumers. And secondly, I hope that we could have an opportunity to look at barriers to accessible communications when consumers are using the Lifeline program for devices and services. Thank you.
Next, Heather.
Thank you, and thank you, Josh, for the opportunity. Since captioning is number 1, I have a couple captioning ideas. One, now that there's more streaming of live content, I think we hear a lot from viewers who are seeing different captions on the streaming version than the television version. This might have been addressed earlier this year, but especially with regard to placement and delay, the same thing on a broadcast might appear delayed or differently placed when streamed. The other 2 issues you might want to consider are, again, the delay in captioning. That comes up a lot, I'm fairly confident. And Spanish and English bilingual captioning is also a topic I've heard from this year a lot. So those are the 3 things that have come my way.
Great, thanks, Heather. Is that Shadi? Did you have your 10 card up? Carl.
Yes, I want to touch on 2 of the 3 areas that Josh mentioned, the accessibility of video programming and emergency notifications, I'm concerned about the accessibility of ASTC, or Next Gen Television, which is slowly being being put out by different markets in the country, and I want to make sure that we remember that the emergency notifications need to be accessible, because that's one of the benefits, that audio description can be used on multiple channels. I'm already hearing from industry that they're worried about sharing multiple tracks because of legacy equipment, and we just want to make sure that the blind community today doesn't compete with people of alternative languages, that they also have access to programs, that captioning. So the accessibility of next generation TV, both for video programming and emergency notification, is something I think we should explore.
Great, thank you. Michael?
Thank you. Michael Strecker here with Clear Captions. I think I had two items I would recommend, and the first one sort of falls in line with what Christina from InnoCaption stated, and that is, the end or eventual phasing out of POTS lines and the impact of that on individuals with disabilities, those people that rely on the old cable or copper network. And then the second item I would have is the analysis or look at accessibility on mobile handsets and how it relates to over-the-top accessibility applications.
Great, thank you, Michael. Everett, do you have a comment?
I would love to see, with the advancements of the CVAA and then the continued advancements of hopefully the passing of CVTA, I would really like to see the FCC explore more ways to create and I guess acknowledge and progress live audio description. Comcast has done an outstanding job of showing that it can be done by providing it for the Olympics and the Paralympics. And so the more we can, since live TV and live streaming is becoming such a phenomenon, blind people want that same access. And so I think we need to explore more ways to make that happen.
Thanks, Everett. Lindsay?
Going to the access and use of 911 services topic, exploring physical accessibility of the hardware components that are currently involved that can enable that. So especially not only just for people with fine motor or mobility impairments, but also just when a lot of emergencies happen situationally, you might not be able to physically access a device to initiate a call and so forth. So with the emergence of opportunities for smart speakers or hands-free activation to give people that access to utilize these devices in a more broader range of settings, ensuring that there's equal access to it without an increased cost. So there are options on the market that enable you to do it for free. There's other ones that don't. And so then it leads the end consumer at the crossroads of, do I pay for a emergency response button or one of those services, or do I instead go and use this other one? So just making sure that mobility-wise, there's accessible routes to enable and access and use those devices, or 911 services, sorry.
Thank you, Lindsay. Scott, you're recognized.
Hi, good morning. I had a few different things. First of all, I strongly agree with the captioning and emergency communications things as a priority. I think anything related to emergency communication should be top of the line. Regarding captioning, what I would like to see looked at are captioning standards for platforms, that require virtual access. So things like Zoom, Google, or any of the others. I don't want to necessarily pick on any of them, but it's an issue that I see over and over again, particularly when it comes to Braille access. Well, there really isn't much. And that's really something I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Beth?
Good morning. This is Beth Slaw with Hamilton Relay. We thought of a couple ideas. Of course, the analog to digital transition is at the forefront of traditional relay, and the need for broadband accessibility nationwide so that nobody is left behind. Another idea we had for a working group is focused on robocalling, stir shaken, and scam calls within TRS and how those rules relate to TRS providers. And another concept would be to focus on a standardized onboarding process within carceral facilities in which the facility would declare somebody during the onboarding process as having a hearing loss or a speech difference that would necessitate the use of relay services. That could really ensure accessibility to the people who need it, who need access to relay service, and at the same time prevent people from using relay who don't necessarily need it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I can't actually see your name tag, but if you could go next.
Yes, Brandon Abley with NINA, the 911 Association. I'm very happy to see the third study item to involve access to emergency services. And what we mentioned the FCC's recent order about advancing a framework for the transition to next generation 911 in the United States, and that's very exciting, and I'm very proud of the contributions NINA had on that proceeding. However, there is still a blind spot in this transition for accessibility for people who have seeing or hearing issues. We have in the standards development technology developed a lot of free and open technology that can be implemented to improve access, but it is just not widely adopted, and I think it may be a good study item for the future DAC.
Zainab?
This is Zainab signing. First, I'd like to begin by stating I really appreciate all the ideas everyone has shared so far. I have one additional idea to add in regards to accessibility of emergency communications, specifically in American Sign Language accessible communications. Current regulations for emergency communications state visual access. So I believe that should include American Sign Language. A working group could potentially explore the possibility of developing standards surrounding how to display American Sign Language interpreters on television during streaming of emergency communications.
Thank you. Brianne?
Hello, everyone. Brianne from U.S. Department of Education. I have three things I'd like to share. First, I would like to share that I truly support the idea of a working group looking at services that are currently being provided by states through analog and the transition to digital. It is a serious and emerging issue that will have an impact on a significant number of consumers across many, if not all, states. So I would appreciate focus in this area. Secondly, I'd like to follow up on E911 or 911 communications. I truly hope that the FCC will take into consideration a working group on accessibility in various areas, and I would like to add one to that. That is text to 911 capability, which should have been implemented across states by this point, but has not yet, and many issues have arisen as a result. Most recently, with the tragic shooting in Maine that had a tremendous impact on the deaf community in that area, they were unable to access 911 to interact with responders. They had tremendous difficulty in engaging in communication with first responders on the scene, so I would like those to be considered. In addition, here in the Washington, D.C. area, text to 911 should be available. However, many deaf individuals are still struggling with accessing this. We do understand that the United States Department of Justice is involved in this process, but I do think this is a worthwhile topic for the FCC to consider in its implementation of a working group. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brianne. Mark?
Mark Hill with CP and Deaf Organization. You know what is currently a very hot topic today is AI. It is pervasive. It's everywhere now. There's live streaming, automatic speech recognition on television. and the impacts on TRS as utilized by individuals with disabilities are tremendous. The scope of best practices on working with individuals with multiple disabilities as it pertains to AI, with the end goal of improving accuracy and the discussion of additional best practices. Another important thing I would like to note is thank you to the Blind Gamers Working Group for your contributions towards accessibility, interpreter correction, and more discussion for individuals with multiple disabilities.
Thank you, Mark. Megan?
Thank you. The Commission has been doing really tremendous work on the Cyber Trust Mark program, but just about a month or so ago, I had to teach one of my family members how to scan a QR code for the first time, which is an essential part of accessing some of the resources for the Cyber Trust Mark. So that brings to mind making sure that folks in the accessibility community are both aware of the Cyber Trust Mark program, but also able to access it and be educated about cybersecurity. So that might be an area that would dovetail nicely with some of the Commission's other excellent work and the work of some of the trade associations around this table, as well in getting the word out as that program rolls out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan. The person next to Megan on the left, I can't read your name tag.
Kathy? Kathy Miller with the American Association of the Deafblind. This conversation must continue through email after tomorrow because I can think of so many issues that need. And the one that is pretty much developed in my head right now is the access for people for hearing aids, the accessible hearing aids that don't, the ones that are accessible, okay. The same standards need to exist for cochlear implants. Cochlear implants are, they're great, but they serve the same purpose as hearing aids, but you have silos. Hearing aids, one set of regulations, and cochlear implants, another set. Doesn't have so much to do with the implants, but more to do with the accessories that are used with the implants. And they should be subject to the same standards. Some solutions will require collaborations with other, in other words, eliminate the silos. We can't do that, but the silos are a lot of problem, and we've got to start collaborating. And the DAC is one wonderful way to collaborate. There needs to be more of that. But as well, medical equipment is what cochlear implants are, and consumer equipment, I think, is what hearing aids are. So we must collaborate in the development of the software, the development of the devices, and the development of the rules. That just all needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Karen?
So first of all, I echo Kathy's request to supplement the record, because what I would like to do is go through the CVTA. Actually, perhaps you could go through the CVTA and find all the areas that the commission already has authority to do something. The wonderful thing about the past year and this administration is that many of the items in the CVTA have been addressed. So the next version hopefully will be a little bit slimmer. Video conferencing was covered, closed captioning, display standards. There's a few more things in there, and one of them is the one that Zainab mentioned, which is video access to ASL interpreters when they're already provided, for example, for emergency press conferences. So it would be great if we can look at the CVTA, figure out what the FCC already has jurisdiction on, and maybe the DAC can explore those. The less that's in the legislation, the easier it will be to get passed. Standards for audio description is one such example. You clearly have authority to do that, to look at those, and it's something that you may want to pursue. I can't remember, I think it was done in the past, maybe renew that effort. And I echo all of the concerns that were raised about emergency communications, which is a challenging area, we all understand, because there's dual jurisdiction, where the Department of Justice has jurisdiction over the 911 centers, the PSAPs, and the FCC has jurisdiction over the transmission. So it's limited jurisdiction. However, I think it's worth exploring a study, for example, on the differences between the difference that can be achieved with direct video calling to 911 centers versus video relay service. And perhaps making recommendations on that and all of the other issues that were raised on emergency communications to the FCC that can then be shared with the Department of Justice. So I think that this group is very influential. You've made tremendous strides in the recommendations you've provided over the years since it has existed. And I think that the authority of this group will hold a lot of weight in trying to get the Department of Justice to update its Title II rules, which still only require direct access by T2Is and allow it to be a text. I think that's it. It's only a few things.
Great, thank you, Karen. And Kim Charleston also had a comment.
I'm going to master this microphone today. I just know I will. So I first wanted to echo and support Everett's comments about some best practice guidelines for live content and audio description. It's an emerging area. Consumers are thrilled to have it. But it's sort of the Wild West of audio description right now with respect to guidance, and I think the providers of audio description are anxious for guidelines, guidance, any kind of input that they can get on that. My second comment is a bigger topic, but it's a little more difficult to tackle, but it's certainly within the FCC's area around audio description. The FCC does not receive very many complaints about audio description related issues directly. Now, there could be many reasons for that. Sometimes I'm surprised as a leader in the blindness community because I certainly hear a lot of complaints about things, but encouraging people to make official complaints in areas where they're warranted sometimes is challenging. So I think there's some barriers there, but the one thing that as a leader in the audio description consumer community is that there are thousands and thousands of blind people who are not accessing audio description because of the challenges they encounter trying to access audio description. Now, I think there's a role for the FCC to help advocates and there's a role for industry, both broadcast and hardware, software. The industry, I think we need to do more to make it easier for someone to connect and get access to audio description. And I can only do so much. One at a time is not going to help the blindness community get access to audio description, and the community overall is having tremendous problems connecting and accessing the audio description that's being provided for broadcast television today. And I just think we need some brainstorming and some support and connection, marketing, whatever it may be. The advocacy community needs help because we cannot connect one blind person at a time. We need a broader, bigger solution to try to make it easier to connect.
Thank you, Kim. It looks like we have a comment from Annie as well.
This is Annie signing. This has been a wonderful discussion from the folks here in the room. One thing that I wanted to add to the discussion that I think may be important has to do with the state relay programs, the analog digital transition. One thing that we have noticed in our TRS working group, best practices working group, is that there seems to be a disconnect when it comes to the sharing of information or the access to information that states have in their relay programs about what's working and what's not working, and how they can expand those programs and what those communities actually need. I think that it would be worthwhile, well, one important point is that 4 or 5 states right now have added communication relay services, communication facilitation programs under those state programs. And so I think it's important that when we're having those types of discussions about what's working and what's not working and how those programs are going, is to talk about what the states are actually doing out there and bring them back to the FCC, maybe expanding funding for some of those programs, perhaps expanding the jurisdiction or authorities from those programs. That's just one potential idea for discussion that I wanted to share.
Great, thanks, Annie. Claire? We're having trouble with the mics. Oh, some self-help. I love it.
Thank you. There we go. That's better. One quick topic that I'd love to see discussed, and I know Karen had brought up that we do have the rulemaking coming up on conferencing, so maybe this is moot and we can address it there. But there's a conflict with things like Zoom now, where the accessibility of AT, like JAWS or other screen reading services, don't interact well with the service itself because of things like chatting. So for instance, when I'm on Zoom calls, appropriately people want to chat back and forth, and because my assistive technology does its job and reads those conversations, I'm competing between listening to the actual conversation via spoken voice and trying to listen to my AT do its job. I don't know what the solution is. It's obviously a complicated one, and like I said, perhaps the rulemaking will talk about this, but I'd love to hear more research and input from people on how big of a problem it is. Is it just me, or other people struggling with it, and what might be some ideas to combat, that's a strong word, that problem, and how can we address that? Thanks.
Great, thanks, Claire. Everett?
And just to add to more of what Claire is saying, the visual elements in conferencing is now becoming, more mainstream, and there's so much visual information that blind people don't get access to. And so if there's ways that, I know that the CVTA is attempting to address this, and I think there needs to be more exploration of how to bring that visual information to blind people in both professional and other settings.
Thanks, Everett. Mark?
Another important thing to note, and I'm speaking specifically in the state of Oregon and its communication facilitators, there is a tremendous gap in access to communication facilitator services and for deaf individuals with additional disabilities. Using myself as an example, I have severe cerebral palsy. And the UC Commission program, who provides communication facilitators, does this work, and I would encourage similar work be done in other states as well. That's a topic for consideration. Thank you.
Lindsay?
To circle back to Claire's idea topic, that was actually, I guess the topic might not need to be activity specific. So the same challenges that she's had with Zoom and not being able to like identify a preference to if she does or doesn't want to be notified of those chat exchanges that are occurring to allow her to focus on the meeting piece or whatnot, if that was her choice. It kind of applies more broadly. We noticed in the video gaming accessibility group, anything that you have multiple communication modalities that can be going on simultaneously. So like in video gaming as well, there isn't an option to say like, I don't want to be notified about what's going on in the chat right now, or like turn it on or off. So it might not need to be like specific, like I guess just like activities that have multiple exchange modalities co-occurring simultaneously, and the accessibility options within those tools.
Thanks, Lindsay. Scott?
To kind of piggyback on some of what Everett and Kim were saying, with regard to described programming, what I would really like to see is something that says if it's generated by a text-to-speech engine, the description, the audio description, that the text be made available to everyone, so that people who may not quite have the hearing to follow the audio will be able to do so. Again, we have the text already being generated to send to the text-to-speech engine, so I really don't understand why it wouldn't be reasonable to be able to access that text to promote more accessibility to more people. Thanks.
Greg?
Thank you for this really fruitful conversation on ideas that we're generating for potential discussion. One that I hope we don't overlook that could perhaps be an agenda item is the Internet of Things, IoT. We've had some discussions on that in the past. I think perhaps it's time to revisit that, given the influence of AI on that sector. So looking at communications under CVAA, looking at bidirectionality, and where we can step in and control a setting in that bidirectional communication, where AI is an influencer on IoT, what interpretations look like in the machine of communication with AI or in the real world space. So I think that's something worth looking at, because I think it's got an influence on accessibility. And, of course, looking at the idea of universal design, where IoT should be encapsulated within that space of auto transcripts for captioning, for braille transcripts and the like. So perhaps that could be an agenda item, IoT.
Thanks, Greg. Brianne?
The camera, please. Thanks. Brianne Berger for US Department of Education. There's been several comments about the carceral communications, and I want to reflect back on that. because when we look at the Department of Education, for many years there's been struggles to provide resources and services to that population. There's insufficient information. We don't know how to reach them, and particularly looking at Rehab Services Administration and those kinds of inputs. Perhaps that could be more closely studied in terms of how the FCC could contribute to that. I think that the Department of Education might be interested in a joint effort in that regard.
I don't see any other tent cards up. Does anyone else have a comment or question to raise? Okay, well, thank you very much for your input. And now that we've gotten the input from the DAC itself, I'd like to turn it over to Josh for the public participation program.
I want to again thank you all for the wonderful working group topic ideas that you have just given to us. It's really eye-opening. I mean, we know of these issues, but it's good to hear from the DAC what you all are considering to be priorities or concerns on behalf of your members. So we've been taking notes. I can see all three of us sitting up here at the front of the table have been taking notes. So we really do appreciate that. And I do have, let's see, bullets on my tablet here. It goes all the way from A to Z, and then it even converts to AA, BB, and right now, let's see, I'm on II. So I will review all of this again and the video after and type up a very careful list to ensure that each of these are considered. I wish we could have 6 working groups at the same time, but I don't think you all might appreciate that too much. I just want to remind the audience that we are still accepting emails. Any emailed questions or comments can be sent into livequestions@fcc.gov. So right now, we do not have any, but I would like to see if the audience that's here in the room has any questions or any comments. If there are any audience members who would like to make a comment or ask a question, please identify yourselves now. I do see one. Please stand up. And I would like to recognize Kevin Steffi from the Telecommunications Equipment Distribution Program Association, TEDPA, TEDPA.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Steffi, and I am chair of TEDPA, TEDPA. As I've sat listening to everyone's comments and additions and echoes, I've made my own notes, and through this process, I've thought of what I'd like to add to the input shared here today, and that is for the eSIM cards. At this time, we have 39 state distribution programs that distribute mobile devices such as iPhones, SimTels, Pixel, and these mobile devices include SIM cards, eSIM cards that are incompatible with Lifeline services. So I think this should be an area of focus as well as compatibility. Just wanted to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. This is Josh speaking. We are aware that the FCC is aware that some equipment distribution programs in some states There are some consumers that want more updated mobile devices, and those do not accept physical SIM cards. Lifeline, some of the vendors through the Lifeline program do not provide those bits of equipment with eSIM. So there is a disconnect or a mismatch between equipment distribution programs and Lifeline and the eSIM. eSIM availability or the equipment that requires a physical eSIM card. So of course we are aware, we are discussing this internally, but thank you for reiterating that. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Okay, folks, we are almost at the end until the DAC is reborn in December. I've said it before and I'll say it again. At a time of such division, it has been enormously gratifying to see stakeholders from industry, from consumer advocates and government come together to do a lot of great work for the American people. So it's been an honor to serve as co-chair with the illustrious Kim Charlson, and I'd like to thank her, all of you members of the DAC, and of course our tireless FCC staff. Good work, everyone.
All right. And thank you, Kyle, for those kind words. And I couldn't have said it better. The FCC team is incredible, hardworking, and all of you. The funny story that I thought was amusing was when I was assigned to the gaming committee, I thought, wow, I thought I was going to do hard work, and now I'm going to be on a gaming task force working group. And, I learned more about gaming because I don't have time to do gaming. So I felt like, why was I put on this committee? But I learned a lot, and I just want to really give a shout out to Sarah, who led us well. It was herding cats and dogs to get us to be on the same channel, because there were some people in our group that were quite expert and others that hadn't played a video game in their entire life. But realizing how important that topic was to many in our communities, it was a pleasure to learn a lot of new things and to learn about a whole area of access with avid blind consumers that I had never connected with before. So it was a new opportunity for me, and I enjoy those new opportunities and enjoy working with all of you. So I'm looking forward to a potential cycle 6 of the DAC. I'm hoping many of you put in applications to be there. And I'm hoping we have some new participants as well to join in this work that's so incredibly important for all of our communities. So thank you for the opportunity to serve as co-chair. And I believe if there's no other comments from staff, I can adjourn. I believe there's logistics perhaps for lunch, which is provided again by Apple. Thank you. And I'll let Josh close with any logistics that we may need to have. And again, thank you to all of you for your contributions. And I think we all deserve a round of applause. Thank you.
I was planning to talk about lunch after we adjourned, but okay, I will talk about lunch now. Again, lunch is for the participants of this meeting and for FCC staff, I hope. People who are providing communications access we are currently setting up lunch on the back wall along the left side. After this meeting, please feel free to go over there and find the food. Again, thank you to Apple for sponsoring the costs of lunch. And back to Kim and Kyle to officially adjourn this meeting and end this term of the DAC.
All right. Thank you, Josh. And again, thank you to Kyle. He's a great co-chair partner. And I think we can co-adjourn this meeting, Kyle. What do you say?
I say we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.